Hi, everyone. My name is Brandy Keeler. I am Assistant Director of Admissions at the College for Creative Studies, which is an art and design college located in Detroit, Michigan, in case you didn't know. And we are about to start a CCS Alumni Live, which is a weekly conversation where we talk with graduates of CCS about their journey from high school to career. And today I'm really excited because we're doing a special CCS Alumni Live where we're talking with special guest Mariana Durst about not just her journey from high school to career, but about how all artists, whether you are a fine arts artist or a craft person, how you can become a liberated artist working for yourself. She's helped several artists. I'm going to read Mariana's bio, then add her to the live for today's special conversation. So with over 15 years of creative online entrepreneurship experience and a bachelor's of fine arts and crafts from CCS, Mariana Durst understands what fine artists and makers are up against when they're selling their work online. That's why she created her company, Desk and Design, which specializes in helping artists uncover their soul level brand and intentional business that gives them the courage to move forward. As a brand and business strategist for artists, she and I share a common goal, which is to support and be hype women for all those artists out there, encouraging them to pursue their creativity and their dreams. So that's why I'm really excited for today's conversation on how to become a liberated artist. I'm so excited to chat with Mariana today and also to have her answer your questions live. So without further ado, I am going to add her to the live. All right, Instagram, why aren't you going live? All right, so something's going on. Hopefully, Mariana, you're joining me from a phone and not a computer. Otherwise, I won't be able to add you. But I'm going to try again to add Mariana to our IG Live today. Let's see if we can get you added here. Mariana, I may need you to send me a request to join the live. For some reason, it's not letting me select you. Can you hit the little request to join on your phone? Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. It's just something that happens during the pandemic with me on IG Lives. There's something may happen every now and then, but we are going to have this conversation today. There we go. I was able to get it to send the request. There we go. I always say Murphy's Law loves technology.
I know, and here I am going all nervous because I've never done this before, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong?
It's not you, it's me. It's totally me. But we are ready. Nothing's gonna stop us from having this awesome conversation today. I'm so excited. Because just in reading about you and reading what you do for artists, that's like my jam. It's like, yes, follow your dreams. So I'd love if we could start, rewinding a little bit backwards, because obviously you're helping a ton of artists build their businesses, sell their work online. But before you began helping other artists, you were a practicing artist yourself, trying to sell your work out in the world. So could you tell us a little bit about where you started after you graduated from CCS with that BFA?
Sure. I did a couple of internships, one at Pewabic Pottery and then another one at Matawi Tile Works. And so I was really excited about tiles and handmade tiles. And so my first business, I couldn't help it. The entrepreneurial spirit is just really ingrained in me. And so I didn't know anything about having a business except that you could do it. People did it. So I'm like, okay. And so I had a handmade tile business that I didn't know how to run. But I loved it. I was just doing it because I love doing ceramics, and nobody had to pay me. I didn't have to make any money on it because I was doing it because I was very, very just excited about it. And also I had my partner at the time was working full time. And so I didn't have to worry about that. So that was huge privilege that helped me kind of explore what it was like to open a handmade tile business.
So, what happened from operating that tile business to where you are now? What led you from selling your ceramics work to now you're doing design and copy and branding? What guided you to that path?
Yeah, well, I'm always like multi-passionate. I've always been pursuing different areas that really interest me and like diving deep into the subject and learning everything that I can. And so after making tiles, I had a business where I designed digital prints when Etsy, was kind of just starting out. And so I had my prints on Etsy, shipping them all over the place. Um,
Mhm.
and it was kind of more like a serious business where I was filing taxes. I was looking at my numbers here and there.
Mhm.
I wasn't quite paying myself then because I was scared of touching the money. And I was like, I'm an artist. I need to be really careful about money. I can't
Mhm.
spend it on myself. I can't pay myself. So it was kind of like the business was going. I just didn't know how to sail that ship.
Mhm.
And then I had my baby, who is now about to be 8 years old, and that kind of shifted my creativity a lot. I didn't want to be making trips to the post office and packaging and having epic fights with my archival Epson printer anymore. I was done with that. And so I started making these handmade herbal products, just really natural stuff for my baby. But then I'm like, oh, I can sell these because again, the entrepreneur in me just can't help it. Like, and so I started learning all about herbalism, and then creating all these goods and designing the labels and all those things that really were exciting to me. And
Mhm.
I made quite a great little business here in my community, um, helping moms take care of their kids and their families. And it was really exciting for a really long while. And I had success with it, but there was a part of me that was kind of lacking. Like
Mhm.
my creativity wanted more. It wanted to just design and be more in the artistic space or the design space. I was missing that. And so I sold my herbal business to another mama who was my client. And she's like, why aren't you making these things anymore? And I'm like, I'm ready to sell it. She's like, I'll buy it. And it was, um, it was great because it gave me the seed
Mhm.
money to really say, okay, this is my fourth business. I'm going to do things right. I'm going to take this
Mhm.
seriously. And
Mhm.
so I gave myself a year to have a solid business, and I joined a mastermind group.
Mhm.
And they're my sisters now. They really showed me what entrepreneurs look like.
Yeah.
Business women who are making money and making moves that made a difference. And it was
Mhm.
just so life changing to be in that circle. And I learned so much, and I started investing in my education.
Mhm.
I started investing in my branding, in my web design, and all those things. And I'm like, okay, I was thinking about being a kind of graphic design VA, like a virtual assistant, but
Mhm.
I just loved way more than that I couldn't just pin myself down to one thing. And then I took this course where I was really invested in. I
Mhm.
invested a lot of money in it, and it kind of helped me define like where my unique factor was. Like
Mhm.
what were all the tools that I knew and the people that are in my heart to serve? Like who is
Mhm.
that and where do I intersect and how can I serve? And so that's where I really took on being a web designer for
Mhm.
artists. But it was so much more. It was also copywriting, which is the
Mhm.
words on the website, which were really
Mhm.
important. And then this year, I really started realizing how much business mentorship I do. I
Mhm.
don't just do a web design and write the copy, it's so much more. And so I embraced that into what is now my signature offer, which includes business mentorship and the branding and the copywriting and the web design, because it's all connected. If I give you a really beautiful website and you don't know how to sail that ship, then you're not going to do very well, or you're going to feel really frustrated. And so I
Yeah.
kind of want to put that support system underneath, so that people can really become liberated.
Hmm. Thanks for sharing that journey. It sounds like you've had a lot of ups and downs in that journey. And I know you mentioned on your website too, like you've been in the trenches as an artist working for yourself.
Mhm.
Um, and I love this line that you actually have on your website. You said, I've been in the trenches and I completely understand what it's like to know your artwork is strong enough to be something worth putting online, only to start letting those voices creep inside your head. The ones that say making a living with art is impossible, or, you're selling out if you're selling your own art, or, in order for you to be a capital A artist, you must struggle, where do you think those voices come from as an artist looking to get your work out there in the world? Where does that come from?
I think, and I've done a lot of, not a lot, but I'm starting to do a lot of more deeper exploration into that, and I'm pretty certain that the roots are white supremacy. Um, I don't know, like, if that is deeper than that, but I do really feel that, like, those voices that try to keep you oppressed and try to tell you that you have to follow a cookie cutter formula or else you're not valid, are rooted in white supremacy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that's going to make a interesting
That too.
follow-up question, because my follow-up question then is, how as individual artists can we combat those voices to then step forward powerfully into getting our artwork out there in the world?
Yeah, I think it's about educating the audience. I think it's about, um, you know, you can start to learn the ropes of a business,
Mm-hmm.
but with intention, you can start knowing which rules you can break and how, and bringing your audience on the journey with you, of
Mm-hmm.
doing things differently, of not subscribing to these things that don't fit you, that don't feel authentic to you. I think that's a good way to start. There's probably a lot
Mm-hmm.
of ways too.
It sounds like a good place to start. That sounds like a great place to start. And then here's a question, because I'm working primarily, and many of the folks tuning in may be high school students, right? So they're at the very beginning of their journey, and maybe battling those voices to even pursue a degree in art education, let alone a career in business and art education. When you think back to who you were as a high school artist, or starting to pursue your degree at CCS, what gave you the courage or the audacity? What allowed you to feel okay stepping into this path?
Oh my gosh, Brandy. I always wanted to be an artist. And when I shared that with my dad, he was like, no. like like you're not going to make money, he was worried. It came from a really good place, and he was like, you
Mm-hmm.
can do art on the side, but like get your degree on like a real thing. And so the compromise was for me to go to architecture, to study architecture, because I'm also really into that. And so I went to architecture for 1 year, and then I got married really young and came to Detroit, which is how I landed in CCS. And I was going to be a graphic designer at CCS, but I went into the ceramic studio and I fell in love. It was so, like getting my hands dirty and all that stuff just was so appealing that I fell in love, and I broke away from that little voice that said you can't make it. I just kind of, it was kind of like just an emotional response that I could not do it.
Mm-hmm. That's strong.
Yeah,
And
it's
oftentimes those
a
voices are
revolution.
for young creative people, right? That voice that's whispering, like, you want to paint, you want to draw. That's really strong.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting for you because you had that interest in design, you pursued craft and sold craft work, but now you're back in that realm of design.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear a conversation a lot with students who have an interest in pottery or glass or craft, or art practice, fine art. They say, I like those things, and their voice, that calling to that is strong for them, but there's that fear of, like, but I don't think I'll be successful doing that. I need to pursue product design or architecture in order to be successful out in the world, what would you tell an artist like that? Because I know you have a lot of clients who are painters and,
Mhm.
ceramicists and things like that. So what would you tell a student who is battling with that? Like, I'm going to pursue art, but I need it to be practical in order to pursue it.
I would say a few things. Number one, even if you have a practical degree, if you don't have the passion for it, you might not do anything with it. And so, on the flip side of that coin, if you have passion for something, then you're going to make it work.
Mm.
You're going to get really creative, not just in learning the craft or the art, but also how to make a living from it. And I believe that, our creativities are willing and ready to support us financially, not just emotionally and spiritually, but like also they show up, the creativity shows up for us if we elevate it, if we give it room to do so. So that's one thing that I would say. And then also CCS, what's great about it is that, yeah, you can go and pursue crafts, but the door is open for you to take all sorts of classes. And so you can, get your impractical degree on something, but you can still get in those practical classes if you feel more comfortable or you need to tell your dad something. And then you know that you're going to get creative and you're going to take steps to see what works, what feels good. And that's the way to kind of just let your heart lead the way.
That's really great advice. I love that. I love it's a win-win, right? You're like, I'm pursuing what my heart needs to follow in order to feel whole, but also I have something that I can tell, my reluctant or nervous parent about. Like, I'm still I'm still doing the thing I need to do.
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned, art also has the ability to not just support us, spiritually and emotionally, but also financially. I think that's a big topic of conversation in the creative world, right? I have a lot of students I know, like, either fearful that they can't make money, or like you said in that description, if you're making money off your art, what does that mean about you as an artist?
Yeah.
And that's a big topic on a lot of these IG lives. It's like, yes, it also has to help you make a living. So what would you say is one of the, I don't know, common mistakes or number one mistakes that artists make when they do get the courage to pursue their dreams as a creative, but also are thinking about the money element? Where are some of the mistakes that they make there?
I think this is something that I did early on, not investing in yourself as a business owner
Mm-hmm.
can be a mistake because then you are not really working through the mindset that it takes to have a business. It's very different than the mindset that it takes to be an artist. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you're serious about representing yourself as an artist and building a business out of it, then I would certainly make sure that you invest whatever resources that you can. If it's checking a book out at the library or taking a class or a course online, there's tons of courses out there for creatives on how to do all these business things. I think that would be a good step,
Mm-hmm.
to take in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. I'm one of those people who's very like personal growth, invest in yourself. You're your biggest asset. So I think that's a huge piece of advice. One thing I'll say to anybody who's watching now, who is, a younger high school artist or, community college artist looking to transfer, one of the ways that you can invest in that potential entrepreneurial path as an artist is through CCS, right?
Mhm.
Because in addition to the skill sets, we have an entrepreneurial studies concentration, which was not there always. I know I've done a lot of IG lives
I
when
mean,
students are like, I wish I was there when I was there. Because,
yeah.
some of us have found some back alleyways to get entrepreneurship up and running, but there's a whole concentration for that at CCS, right? It has classes like money management techniques for artists and brand management for artists and designers and things like that. But that's a huge piece of advice. So I want to make sure folks who are tuning in know that this is not just me, asking all the questions here. If you have questions for Mariana about becoming a literary artist, making a living, doing what you love, and getting paid to do it as an entrepreneur, as an artist, make sure to drop those questions in the Q&A box. And also, obviously, as you're listening to the interview, you see Mariana has a lot of different skill sets as well, right? Design and craft and
Copyright.
printmaking and more. So if you and copywriting, I'm like, there's like 7 different majors at CCS that you do in just your one business. So if you all have questions about what she's currently doing as well, make sure to drop those in the Q&A box, because I want to make sure to ask those here live and get those questions answered for you.
Sure thing.
Yeah. So here's a question. What would you say is the major difference between folks who are maybe working in a company? Obviously, like there's entrepreneurship, right? But when it comes to selling your work online, that seems like there's a whole spectrum of things that artists and designers should keep in mind, know about. Like there's a whole different, like you mentioned, a different skill set from being an artist to being someone who's an entrepreneur, but then add on to that online. What would you say, and this is kind of a big question, but what would you say the role of the pandemic and COVID-19 is in this landscape now? Like, has it shifted how artists and designers have to market and message themselves online? Is it the same?
Yeah, I think the importance of having a presence online is very important. I mean, this whole pandemic has shown us that, you know, the artists who were solely relying on festivals, on fairs, on their brick and mortars, were hit by the pandemic, and all of a sudden everything was closed for a time, and now it's opening back up. But who knows if it's going to be closed off again? And if you have kind of that check mark on your online presence and making sure that it's solid, you can pivot really quickly. You have your inventory online. You can continue nurturing those people via email. I always encourage all my clients to collect their email, like their clients or customers or ideal customers emails to use for marketing purposes or just for keeping them updated. You have to kind of have that now more than ever. And luckily it's not that difficult to do it anymore. It was very difficult to know how to build a website and build a logo, even like if you weren't a graphic designer.
Yeah. And you've worked with a lot of CCS alumni. I've seen some of our past CCS alumni live guests on your website. Shout outs to Kay Bramlage. Yeah. It's funny, her work is so awesome. I do branding and website stuff too, and I had artists come to me and they were like, I was like, I do branding, but you should talk to Mariana because she specializes in artists. The work that you do for folks is so amazing. And Katie's here. Hey, Katie. So what is it that and you don't have to give all your trade secrets, but what is it that you use to inform the way you talk about an artist online, right? Is it like for artists who are doing this on their own or young artists who are just trying to get an online presence, like what are some of the things that they should be thinking about when they start talking about themselves online?
I think a lot of the places where artists struggle is talking about themselves and knowing what to say. And I think that keeps them from writing anything about themselves. I mean, writing your artist bio and your artist statement is one thing, but like a whole website, it's very difficult. And I mean, I understand. I totally understand. And for me, it's way easier to know what to write because I'm not them. It's getting help from friends or family who know you, who appreciate your work can be so helpful. Keeping notes to yourself of like things that you've been told about your work, feedback that you've been given when you sell a piece, all those things, like keeping them in your phone's notes or something, because those words are really powerful for marketing. So always be listening to other people, because when you're trying to sell your own work online, it's not about you sounding like you. It's about your audience really understanding how you can help them, how to fit into their narrative. So that's kind of like one little tip that I can give you. I can talk about this
right without giving your secrets. That's a huge tip, and I've seen so many artist websites where it's the people try to let their work speak for themselves, and there's like no bio, like their about page is like one sentence, and I'm just like, who is this? So I think that's a great tip, like taking feedback you've heard from people and starting a list of how other people are talking about your work to empower yourself to talk about your work. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I see a question coming in, and we're going to take a break from my questions to take some audience questions. So someone said, so from an outside perspective is the best way to go as far as like getting that language. I think they're talking about.
Yeah. So like looking outside for a message, yeah, asking people, like I'm always asking my clients for testimonials. My ear is always kind of just grabbing those sound bites, and I keep them on my phone, and that's how I really refine my messaging, and I really learn things about myself that I couldn't see before. Like I knew them, and they're me, but I just couldn't put a word to it, for sure.
That's awesome. One thing I'll tell too for younger artists, because you all may not have, some of you I know have clients. I know there are high school students with Etsy shops and whatnot. But for those of you who aren't selling your work yet, you have a lot of still clients that you can reach out to, right? You have your teachers who can give you feedback on your work and help you to start to see what your voice is. Admissions counselors. I always tell students, even if they're hopefully interested in CCS, that they're talking to other art colleges to get a well-rounded viewpoint about their portfolio and their work, right? Getting feedback from a lot of different sources is helpful, even if you're not in business yet, right?
Yeah, self-awareness from the inside and from the outside. Like, you know, what are your strengths as others see them, and kind of using them, because that's a resource that you have. And if you embrace it and you go with it, you can really take marketing or understanding how you fit into your customers or clients to a new level.
All right, so I see we have someone who dropped a question in the, oh, that was you, Mariana, the question box. All right, so I see Alex is here. Alex is an aspiring concept designer. He has amazing work. Alex asks, what is the best approach to advertise a product? So I'm guessing if you're an artist or designer, you want to promote your stuff online, what's a best approach?
Well, I think Instagram is a great platform, and depending on who your ideal customer is, if it's a digital something, chances are Instagram is where they're hanging out. And so making sure that you have a presence and consistency, and that you're putting your best work out there and speaking of it through the lens of your ideal customers. I think when you understand them, you gain a better understanding of your product and you can frame it so that you can know exactly how to sell it to them. And it's basically just like, hey, I've got this service or this wonderful product, and here's how it fits into your life. This is a benefit that you can get from it. And so, yeah, if you know who your ideal customers are for your product that you're trying to sell, showing up where they are and figuring out what is the problem or the desire or the aspiration that your product or service can help them with. Hopefully that makes sense. Alex, let me know.
That's a great question, Alex. Thanks for asking. All right, so I have a couple more questions, and if you all tuning in have questions, make sure to keep dropping them in there. So we talked a lot about your journey, your career, what you're doing, and how you're serving other artists, and even some tips and tricks to help artists out there who are doing this on their own. A question that I have for you, I know this is something that you talked about on your site as well, is sort of this lifestyle design aspect of being a working artist and designer, right? So there's obviously the way that you serve your customers and understand them and speak to them and get your work to them, but your business also needs to support your life. I know in your bio you mentioned having a business that you're running and there was like burnout, right? What are some things that artists should keep in mind as they're, you know, pursuing this path of creating their work for their customers, but also keeping in balance themselves and their life and their goals?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of taking a moment to pause everything and take stock of the way that life is feeling in that moment, and trying to find those edges where you feel exhausted, you know, those edges that feel exhausting. And that's where boundaries need to form, whether it's with how you're managing time. They can be internal boundaries, like I'm not going to be working 24/7. I'm going to be working until 5, and then I'm going to have my life, or whatever works for you. Or for example, a lot of my clients have commissions or take on commissions, but they're really burned out on them because they take all sorts of commissions and they don't have a process locked down in place, so that they're kind of like a plastic bag just floating in the wind wherever the client takes them, instead of the reverse. This is my process. I'm going to take you on this journey with me that's intentional and that helps me feel relaxed and in my highest creative self. Also, I think it's really important to adjust and to be flexible, and to know that you don't have to do things the way other people are doing it, to come up with your own systems, to come up with your own marketing schedule or whatever. And there's no right answer, except, the one that works for you. That's the right answer.
I think that's a beautiful thing to hear, right? There's no right answer. It's just what's right for you. Because I think that's something, especially with artists who are making work that is of their own voice and their own vision, taking commissions, working with clients, like how do you maintain that balance, right? Of like, this is what I want versus this is who I'm creating for. What you described seems like a perfect answer to that, right? Like having those boundaries in place, both externally and internally, to make sure as you're creating it, it's still serving you while also being what your customers need, right? Because I've in my personal life, running a business, I've seen that where I was just designing for everyone at one point. I was like, oh no, I can't do this, and now I'm very clear, like my customer is this person and I have a full-time job. So I'm like, and these are the hours and this is my rate in order to work, right? Setting those boundaries in place, make it so that that work serves me and the people that I'm creating for.
And when you define those things, it just becomes easier to find the right people to work with, because not every single dollar that you earn feels right, or the best way. There's money that costs a lot more to earn a lot of peace of mind, a lot of drain. I've had some horror stories a while ago, thank goodness, but now it's like kind of like that awareness of like, that didn't work, I'm not going to repeat it, let me refine. And so having that mentality and that mindset of just continuously doing that is great. And in the beginning, you're like in high school and maybe you're trying to have a business at the same time, then you might want to take on all the things. It's fine to want to build your portfolio. You have to figure out what's wrong so that you can figure out what's right. And so there's no shame in like having a not great commission, or a not ideal client, but you still do it, because if you have the right mindset, you will learn a lot and gain a lot from the experience.
That's huge insight, because it is a journey, right? To curate who that audience is and know what those boundaries are and what your creative process is. Like starting with being open while younger is a great idea. So that brings me actually to one of the questions that I ask every alumni live. And that's knowing what you know now about your journey, about creativity, about your art, about business. What advice would you give your 18-year-old or your high school self about pursuing your creativity?
That it's worth it. You need to build a life, or I'm on a mission to help people really build a life that they feel proud to live in. And that means saying no to all those voices, those sometimes internal voices that are putting you down or keeping you from embracing your passion, from embracing your instinct that are trying to kind of just calm those flames. I say it's worth it to put it out there, to go for it. And a good life is built with intentional choices. I'm sure, there's kind of stuff that happens that can be truly terrific, but if you have a solid basis of making intentional decisions for your life, I think that helps you be more successful and have get more out of your creativity and more of that excitement that you feel kind of going into a new creative career.
Yeah, definitely, 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 definitely. Intention is huge, and um, like you said, it's about what you're getting out of it, right? And so, having that intention, making those choices, they can help as life throws those things at you, right? That unpredictability, having that foundation of doing what matters to you.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see an example, you like so many other of the alumni that I've interviewed who are doing that, right? You've pursued your creativity, you've gotten your degree, and you're making a difference in the world in only a way that you can. And so I'm just honored to meet you and be able to
Oh,
have this conversation with you today. It's inspiring for me. I always say
oh,
like, this is for the kids, but it's inspiring for me as well.
you're awesome.
Um,
Thank you, Brandy. That's so
yeah,
sweet.
no, thank you. So with that, I'll see if anyone else has any other questions, any last minute questions from our folks tuning in today. Any questions?
Thank you, Kate.
Okay.
She wrote, "This is gold, ladies." Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Katie, and thanks for tuning in. Mariana, I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey, your wisdom, your industry insights and knowledge, and giving us today a few tips on how we too can become liberated artists. I want to thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone who tuned in. I know some folks came in and out, but everyone who tuned in and watched live, thank you. And for all of those who are watching the recording, I hope you find this conversation as inspiring as I did.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
CCS
you.
Alumni Live.
Yeah, send me a message if you have questions about creative career choices or why I love CCS and I wish I was there every single day of my life. It has not stopped. Can I go back, Brandy? Will they take
You
me?
can always, there's Katia, you can always come back. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask this. Mariana, if people did want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about you and your work, where should they go and look?
They should go to deskanddesign.com. That's my website, and I've got all sorts of information for people, or just drop in my DMs, and I'm happy to connect with fellow artists and help anybody who is in need of support.
Thanks so much. All right, you guys heard there. Make sure to follow Mariana, visit her website, and stay creative. I will see you all at next week's Alumni Live, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks so much, Mariana.
Thank you, Brandy.
Bye.
Bye.
Sure thing.